Hi, I'm Kelly Forden. I'm here today with Treena Thibodeau, and we're discussing her story, Someone Will Come and Get Us, which was originally published in the Rumpus, August 28th, 2019. Hi, Treena.
Hi, Kelly. Thanks so much for having me on.
Thank you for coming. I'm so excited to talk about this story. It's fascinating in a number of ways for me because I love stories that are about a character who you don't understand her motivations. I just related to her, I guess is the way what I'm trying to say. I was thinking about the beginning of it, how you right away mentioned falling. I'm supposed to announce that she's supposed to announce that she's falling, and she's climbing, and that comes in, multiple times throughout the story. And I was just curious about, I guess, maybe your background and whether, are you a climber or did you have to research climbing?
I am not a climber. I have had a few attempts at rock climbing here in New York in the indoor gyms, and I can tell you it's something that I thought I would be really good at, and I am terrible. There definitely is a grip strength element that I lack. It's strategic as well. It's a riddle that you solve with your body. I think it's fascinating. I'm not very good at it again, but I became interested in climbing as a metaphor after watching that documentary about Alex Honnold, Free Solo. It's fantastic. And I had seen it, and the thing that really struck me about it was not the heights or the incredible physical feat that was climbing uh, El Cap in Yellowstone. It's the fact that Alex Honnold went ahead with this project despite the fact that he could end up leaving his girlfriend without her loved one. That for him, his independence and his freedom were worth more than her having a sense of security. I just thought that that was so horrible and interesting, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. I knew I wanted to have a story that involved rock climbing.
That is really interesting because I saw that documentary too, and there seemed to be something. I mean, he's definitely just completely focused on the climbing to an extent that a normal person would never be, right? There's something.
And yeah, it's this like obsessiveness. It's this obsessive quality, and to me, there is something inherently sexual about rock climbing. This act of conquest, and I knew I wanted it to be a female climber doing a sport that is mostly men. And I actually, before we spoke today, looked it up to see what happened with Alex Honnold and that the girlfriend in the movie, and they are married and they are still together. So I think
Oh
really,
my gosh,
isn't that incredible? Really,
that is
true-
incredible, actually.
the true obstacle is figuring out a way to be with another person, right? I think the real obstacle is figuring out how to be okay with another person and how to be okay with another person when the relationship changes.
Hmm. Yeah, it's so fascinating because she's in this relationship with Sam. And clearly, like, 6 paragraphs down, we learn that Sam's always tired, and sex has become a chore. And then later on in the story, she gets all like dolled up and she's wearing, I don't know, something really sexy. And he's like, you don't need any of that. So clearly, before, in the beginning of the story, it's not just that she's bored. He's not showing any interest either. So
Which
I tried
for
to remember
her,
that.
for Marissa, that is her excuse. That is her reason to consider having an affair. That morally, that's how she's able to square the circle. So when after a near-death experience with the falling window, Sam suddenly rediscovers his libido, it changes the narrative of their relationship, where he's the sexless one and she's the unsatisfied one, and he is not doing for her what she feels that he is supposed to be, and therefore it would be okay if she had this affair.
So that moment with the glass falling when they're walking down the street in New York, and everything does change for him, and then he's so attentive, with her. What were you thinking in that scene? What were you thinking was happening in Sam's mind
I do
after
think
that?
that near-death experiences are strangely sexual, and can cause that exact reaction. So I really wanted to look at both the climbing and the falling glass, which, by the way, that did happen here in New York around the time I was writing the story. There was a blowout, Lexington Avenue. A window fell from a skyscraper, and no one was hurt. But just the idea that you could see a window fall from the skyscraper, hit the sidewalk, and disintegrate, and think and realize and really know I was that close to death. And Sam absolutely loves Marissa. I mean, throughout the story, I really tried to show the ways in which he loves and appreciates her. When they go to that wedding together and he talks about how she climbs mountains with her bare hands, he absolutely does love her. It's an experience that snaps him out of some of the depression and that he has been experiencing. And with that comes this resurgence in lust for Sam. But for Marissa, it's very unwelcome. She has lost sexual interest in Sam as well. And so long as he wasn't approaching her, she was able to feel like she was the one being rejected.
Interesting. Okay, so when you started out to write the story, can you tell me a little bit about what you thought of the characters, Sam and Marissa? Like, if you had to describe Sam, what would you have said? And then Marissa, and then maybe their relationship.
I'm going to start with Sam. I adore Sam. Sam is one of my favorite characters that I have ever written. The part in the story I think that best describes him is where I talk in the wedding scene where people pull their chairs over from other tables to hear him tell a story, that he has the gravitational pull of a campfire. He is just somebody that people want to be around. He's somebody who makes people feel safe. He's smart and funny, um, and charismatic, and um, very attractive. Marissa is someone who's extremely goal oriented. She is driven by her career, by her desire to top projects, which are these rock climbing expeditions that she takes on. She loves a challenge. Sam is no longer a challenge for her. Hamish certainly is. And she is someone who had a much wilder sexual past. Uh, the story does hint at one ex-husband, so she has tried this marriage experiment before, and she does feel trapped. She's someone who has relationship claustrophobia and longs for freedom and open spaces, and has a lot of trouble with commitments, but also has a lot of trouble with admitting to any of this, and would prefer to say that it's all just an accident. And I think the the thing that I really wanted to leave ambiguous was, to what extent did she know that Sam was going to fall at the end of the story?
Right, and I couldn't tell at all. I mean, like being with her throughout the story, you did have to wonder, like, okay, did she set this up? But he was the one who really said he wanted to go on and he even said, maybe I'll go with Hamish. And I was like, okay, way to weasel yourself right in there.
Oh, he totally cock blocks and has no idea that he is doing it. It is absolutely an intrusion, and she is resentful. And I wanted to put across the idea that she feels very resentful that she's lost this one thing that she finds very sexually exciting in her life, is this flirtation with Hamish. And suddenly there is her husband wanting to be a part of her life, annoyingly. And um, I think ultimately it's not that she it's not that she sets things up so that he will fall. It's that she doesn't care enough if he does fall. And I think that we can be careless with other people's feelings, at times where it's not a deliberate wounding, but it's not taking the care to be mindful of how actions affect other people. That was really what I wanted to show. And um, that she knows at the end that there will be guilt, but she still is mostly thinking about how it looks and how it's going to sound. Again, it's like her narrative of this relationship has been, starts out that she is a woman in a sexually frustrating marriage that's not providing her what she needs, and then that she doesn't really know what to make of it when all of a sudden he's very interested in her and her hobbies. It's not welcome, and she's not comfortable with that narrative at all. And now there's going to be a new narrative, and I wanted it to be. I didn't want him to die. I did want to leave the possibility that he might be permanently in a wheelchair, and what the loss of sexual function that would mean. And I wanted to sort of leave that as a possibility for the reader.
Yeah, and then she makes the statement of, I would have to give him my spine if he asked for it at this point. And I wondered, like, would she really do it though? Because she doesn't seem like the type who she could probably talk herself out of that, even if.
Right. I think so. I think so. I think she realizes that she's painted herself into a moral corner where no one would hear her story and take her side. And in a way, I feel like the thing that makes her sympathetic for me is just is that knowledge that she is aware of that.
Yeah, so that was interesting to me too, because she said, oh, no one is going to believe, I'm just paraphrasing it, but she's like, no one is going to believe that I didn't plan this. And I thought, well, that wouldn't be the first thought that came to my mind, but I guess an experienced climber would say, or Hamish would even say, well, why the heck did you let him go up there? But he also seemed very determined to do it. So
I'm fascinated with selfish characters. I think that is something that winds its way through all of my stories, is the way that people are selfish in these it's such a hidden thing, because we know we're supposed to be generous and selfless, and especially with a life mate. And I'm very interested in those hidden selfish thoughts that we have, that I
yeah,
have anyway.
that power differential, like it's, it's easy to see what she finds attractive in him because everybody finds him attractive, and people are gathering around him at the wedding. It's less it's less easy for me to see what he sees in her, unless it's just the pursuit. Or what were you thinking that he sees in her?
I think he is attracted to her drive and strength, because Sam is sort of vague, doesn't really know what to do with himself and his free time.
Mm-hmm.
The idea that he doesn't want to go and find his own thing to do. He wants to do whatever she's doing. So he is characterized by a sort of vagueness, and she is all purpose.
Mm-hmm.
She is very driven, and he's very attracted to that idea that he could just sort of be pulled along in the wake of her ambitions.
There were some terrific lines. I just want to point out all these lines that I love. When she's riding on the subway and it looks like a buffet, I loved that. And even texting Hamish to ask if he wants to meet at the gym is innocent if you discount motive. And then Sam has the gravitational pull of a campfire is a fantastic line. And then there were a couple of lines that really showed that she had some sort of innate bitterness toward men, I thought. You tell a man you're good at something physical, he needs to show you he's better. Usually in a story, you'll get a little bit of backstory about why this character is behaving this way. And you didn't give us any of her backstory, but she has that comment, and then she has another comment, just two comments about men in general. And I thought, well, she must have some sort of bad story with men.
I think that she does experience relationships with men as inherently oppositional, and that it is a competition, a zero-sum game, where to get your needs met means you have to be a little aggressive about what you want, not just assertive, but really aggressive. And that there is in being in a relationship. There's giving something up. And at the same time, I really wanted to hint at that there is security that she longs for as well. She loves the idea of flannel pajamas and wandering around Costco looking at giant tubs of condiments. There's something about home that she wants, but she needs it almost to have been forced upon her. It's not as if it's not her idea to be in these marriages, when it certainly very much is. She has total agency, and I think part of the tragedy of her character is that she does not realize how much agency she actually possesses.
And she keeps saying, what is, she keeps saying, I'm going, I'm going, I'm going to. And I thought of some endings, but I'd love to hear.
She is having a struggle here with admitting to herself that she is going to have this affair with Hamish, and that she wants it just to sort of happen like falling. Right? We talk about falling in love as if it's an accident, as if it's just a misstep. And I think that there's so many steps along the way to getting into a relationship, and an affair is a type of relationship. And for her, she, again, just like with the marriages where she does not see her own or admit to her own agency in being in these relationships, it's a thing that's happening. And so she can't quite admit that that is where this is headed, although it very clearly is exactly where it's headed.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I was thinking that the ending would be like, I'm going, I'm going, I'm going to fall, but meaning like I'm going to, or I'm going to fail was another thought I had. Like in terms of fail to keep this going, I'm going to fail to to remain with Sam, or fail to take care of him. I don't know.
I think it's a fantasy that she keeps vague. I mean, there are some very specific sexual references to Hamish in there, but it's they're not fully fleshed out fantasies. It's always, I wanted them to be as if they were seen through a door that isn't quite closed all the way. There's glimpses of the fantasies she has about him, but he is also, Hamish is incredibly objectified in this story. It's all about his physical presence, and I wanted to leave him as vague and blank as possible in this story.
It's not him. I mean,
It's
he definitely would just keep climbing with her and make no move whatsoever. She has to do everything.
right.
Yeah. So did you play around at all with any of the other perspectives, or did you know from the beginning you just wanted to write it
I
basically?
knew that I knew that I wanted the story to be in Marissa's perspective. I knew I wanted Sam to be the more sympathetic of the two. I really had to write and rewrite my way to even this amount of sympathy for Marissa. And the most challenging part of the story was figuring out the ending. The initial draft of the story was Hamish was there with them, and there was, a moment between Marissa and Hamish that was overtly sexual, and that felt very much like, my writing partner basically was like, this is basically murder. Like they are just causing they're causing Sam to have this accident, and I didn't want it to be that directly violent. I wanted it to be something that she was just that she had not been that she'd been careless, that she hadn't been thoughtful, that it was almost an accident.
Yeah, I mean, and I thought that was so brilliant, the way that she's distracted by another redhead, right? And she just, yeah, looks away, and then, and and I love the fact that he had seemed so confident too. I mean, she does at the end push him toward the last part of it, but really he wanted to go up. So it's not like she told him, that she didn't warn him that it was hard. I mean, he knew it was hard and he wanted to go anyway, and she looked away for a second. So all of those things.
I also think that there is a thing where she doesn't exactly want him to succeed either. I don't know that she wants him to fall, but I think that she does not want him to be successful. This is her thing. He is horning in on her thing, which is climbing, which she has worked so hard at. And there are plenty of female climbers, but it definitely is a sport that's dominated by men. And I absolutely think that she would be very irritated that Sam takes it up and that he is naturally sort of good at it. I think that bothers her.
And I didn't feel like he was completely innocent either. He saw the look that she was giving Hamish in the gym, and then he befriends him, then he's befriending Hamish and he's talking about him. And I felt like he knew what he was doing. It wasn't all innocent on his part. I think he was jealous. I mean, it seemed like that as a reader. I don't know because you wrote it, but as a reader, he seemed like he was jealous. And
he definitely notices he's aware of the problems that he and Marissa have been having in their relationship and sexually. And I'd say that it makes him sad when he says, like, I remember being on the receiving end of that look. I think
that was very sad.
A natural progression in relationships as it moves from the early excitement of that new relationship energy to the mellow security and comfort that is a long-term relationship, that there's a sadness in that passing that I don't think gets talked about very much. I think people in long-term relationships are told they're responsible for keeping it spicy, and as if that's a thing you can do. Just add rock climbing. I don't know, but like I think that the he is jealous, but also not enraged with jealousy or passionate. Not he doesn't tell her she can no longer climb or no longer volunteer at Meals on Wheels. He is just sort of sad and resigned.
Yeah, which is almost, I don't know which is worse, but both are. Yeah, it's something that it doesn't seem like she'll ever be able to come to terms with, sadly for her, because what do you do then? Just jump from relationship to relationship forevermore. And at the end, did you feel like, well, I guess you left it up in the air on purpose, but I did want to ask you this because I have you here. If you were to imagine a future for them, what would you imagine next?
It's, I hate to say this, Kelly, but it would not be a particularly happy ending, because I think that already their relationship is characterized by a lot of obligation on her part, where she feels like she has signed this contract that she's now sort of duty bound to be in, and that she's a bad person for wanting to break that contract. I think that the injury will affect him and his abilities physically, sexually, and emotionally, and that she will feel that she is obligated to care for him, and that I don't think that she has the resources to do that.
It didn't seem like she did. Even if she feels like she owes it to him, I
She
felt
feels
like
like she feels like she owes it to him. She absolutely feels that she does, and I think that she might stay out of a sense of obligation. But I have a feeling what she's going to learn is that this is a quality of hers that she brings into all her relationships.
yeah, very sad. There were a couple of things that I wanted to ask you about, just small things. I just always like to know, if they were inserted on purpose or so. There are these chairs covered in peridot fabric dyed to match the bridesmaids' gowns, and so I had to look up that. I had never heard of. Is that how you
It's a
pronounce it?
hideous green color, and I can tell you because my beloved baby sister had bridesmaids dresses that were that color. Yes, that
Oh
face
my
is
gosh.
appropriate. I don't think it's a pretty color, and I do think that bridesmaids are supposed to sort of fade into the furniture. Yeah, and also I knew I wanted there to be a wedding in the story, because I think that culturally there's this, it's supposed to be the greatest day of a woman's life. No one ever says it's supposed to be the greatest day of a man's life. It's supposed to, getting married is supposed to be, that is supposed to be the achievement. That's the time.
Well, it was interesting because when I looked it up, so peridot is the gemstone, is considered a stone that could provide healing powers, curing depression and opening the heart. Isn't that kind of cool?
It's kind of cool, and
Yeah.
that is not something I was aware of.
Yeah, but kind of neat because he seems to have depression and she needs her heart opened up a little bit. Okay. And the description of him at the wedding, he has the gravitational pull of a campfire. And I thought, well, that's great. Like everybody wants to sit around a campfire, but that's not super sexy either. So what a great description. It's both, that is cozy personified. At one point, Sam drapes his arm around her shoulder, and his arm is heavy, and she says, his arm is heavy and my shoulders are tired. And that, it was like very simple sentence, but I thought like the weight of having someone being in a relationship with someone who's depressed,
Yes.
can feel exactly like that. And
Yes.
that's pretty subtle because she definitely seemed to have her own problems aside from that, but add on someone else's depression. What were you thinking when you came up with the title?
I feel like the title was early in the story, which is rare for me. Titles are hard. I always struggle with titles and I never feel like I nailed it. This is one of the few stories I've written where I'm still really happy with the title, because it is this idea that someone outside of the relationship, whether it's an affair or whatever outside force, is going to come in and fix this thing that really can only be fixed from the inside. And of course, it's the thing that she says after he's fallen is, stay still, someone will come and get us. Someone will provide the rescue for this relationship. And that someone is deliberately vague. There's not, she doesn't know exactly. It's not like the park service will come and get us. She just, has, it's a hope that someone from outside will somehow fix this unfixable situation. And that's within her as well, that she could find someone who would fix the feeling that she has within her that something is missing.
So what have you been working on?
I'm working on a novel, and the novel is largely about a woman who is in a relationship with someone who desperately wants to have a child, and the protagonist does not. And she has an inability to think about the sacrifice that motherhood requires of her, and also an inability to admit that she doesn't have it in her.
That sounds great. How far along are you?
I'm a year in, but it's been a strange year, so it's kind of slow going. I've got a really rough first draft that I think now I sort of know what I want the novel to be about. It takes a draft for me to figure out what I'm trying to say, and then I have to actually go back and say it. So
great. Well, I can't wait to read it, and thank you so much. Is there anything I didn't ask you about this story that you were
I do just want to note that the editors at the Rumpus are really terrific, and I received so much helpful feedback and questions of the stories I've published. This is probably the one I received the most notes on, and it was just very, very helpful for me to go through that process. I think, editors are really fantastic people, and I really appreciate the editors at the Rumpus for giving the story a home.
That's great. And so the notes from the editors you received, but did you also receive feedback from readers as well?
I have a terrific writing partner who I worked on this story with. I sent this story to a writer friend who helped me work on it. It was the story I used for my residency applications that year. So that was the story I sent to the Vermont Studio Center, and it got me that particular residency. And then I got the news of its publication while I was at Vermont Studio Center. So that was really a nice circle being completed.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. It was great to talk about it. I love the story and I really appreciated you coming on the podcast.
Thanks, Kelly.